Well, hello, good people. This is Michelle Conklin, also known as the Working Class Wordsmith. And today we're going to talk about a word that gets used usually in a negative sort of way. People talk about rhetoric like it's always something that is awful, something that is undesirable. And the problem is that all of us use rhetoric, and we're going to talk about exactly what rhetoric is and how to use it. In other words, we're asking, is rhetoric a bad thing? So, first of all, we want to talk about how first impressions can be misleading. So when you hear the word rhetoric, chances are you get a little queasy. You flash at some brash, loudmouth politician who promises the moon if only you will vote for him or her, all the while bashing the other candidate. That's understandable. I used to have the same image, especially when I was a local newspaper reporter. It's easy to get discouraged when you hear the same talking points over and over again, but not to see the kind of change you want to see. So, to understand what rhetoric is, we need to revisit ancient history. And although this may not be an actual representation of ancient history, this is my first impression. Grew up in Garden City, Michigan, where Little Caesars was founded. This was the first image I ever had of the ancient Greeks and Romans. So when I say go back to the beginning, I mean really go back to the beginning. So you want to define rhetoric. What is it? It isn't just a label to throw on messages that don't ring true. It's not only used by politicians. All of us, every single day, use rhetoric. Although there is some debate by scholars about what rhetoric is, Aristotle was the first in the Western tradition to attempt to fully define it. The short version, loosely translated, is the available means of persuasion. So, rhetoric at work. What does it look like when someone is actually using rhetoric? So anytime somebody or some group tries to motivate you to do something, to buy something, to vote for someone or something, or not to take any of those actions, that person or group is using rhetoric. What's it called when you try to get someone else to take action or not act? Rhetoric. Think about any time that you try to ask your boss for a raise, or if you're still living at home with your parents, when you want to stay out later or go somewhere, or maybe borrow the car if that's an option for you. If you've got kids, you might be trying to get them to clean their room or do the chores or whatever. Anytime you try to get someone to act a certain way or to not take a certain kind of action, you are using rhetoric. So if we all use rhetoric, why does it get such a bad rap? Well, it goes back to the ancient Greeks and the Sophists. Before we had lawyers, people had to make their own arguments in court when they wanted a judge to rule another person had wronged them or when they were accused of wrongdoing. The Sophists were scholars for hire. They trained citizens how to make their own case in court to get the verdict they wanted. So, as a result, the thinkers of the day, the teachers, the people who were kind of like the thought leaders, the influencers of their time, developed a pretty low opinion of rhetoric because they saw what the Sophists were doing, that it had a serious flaw in their method, that they didn't have a code of conduct to guide them about what kinds of persuasion were ethical and what kinds were not. They didn't want such a code. The Sophists were cynics who didn't have faith in religion or any system of government. They were opportunists who believed any method was fair game as long as their client won. The ends justified the means. The result was all that mattered, and the method of achieving it, whether it was ethical or unethical, whether it was shady or if it was on the up and up, didn't matter. The big thing was what was the outcome. And as a result, you may have heard of the term sophistry, which we still use today to describe the use of fallacious or misleading arguments. Plato, who was Aristotle's teacher and mentor, described rhetoric as a form of flattery that makes bad arguments digestible, just as a cook who knows how to prepare food so spoiled ingredients are tasty in a finished dish, because the original use for spices was to cover up the taste of rotting meat. So Aristotle respected his mentor, but he didn't agree with Plato's opinion about rhetoric. While Aristotle wrote quite a bit on this subject, we're just going to focus on the 4 types of rhetoric he identified: ethos, pathos, logos, and kairos. So we go based upon ancient statues. Aristotle is the guy on the left, Plato is the guy on the right. Let's talk about ethos. It's about the credibility of the speaker or writer. Is this person trustworthy? Is this person an expert regarding the topic at hand? You can establish a speaker or writer's expertise by doing a little research, but trustworthiness can take longer to establish. It's not enough just to believe people have ethos just because we like what they're saying. We have to examine what they've said in the past and if it was verifiably true. The speaker or writer's declarations are proven true most of the time because we all make mistakes, so we can allow for a little margin of error. He or she has likely established his or her ethos. So by telling you I used to be a reporter, and if you've seen the trailer for this channel, you know that what I do all the time is I'm constantly working with words, whether if I'm writing to get published or whether I am teaching, that's my thing. So I'm all about words. Am I trying to establish my ethos with you right now? Yeah. Why am I telling you that? Because I want you to see me as somebody who is forthright, somebody who's upfront about who I am and what my motivations are. What are my motivations? I want everybody to feel comfortable looking at information, feeling like they can make good judgments about it, and then being able to make sound arguments based on facts and logic. That's my motive. I'm tired of not being able to talk to people about certain subjects. I want to be able to talk to anybody about just about anything without feeling like I have to avoid certain topics because our society is so divided. That's my motivation. I'm telling you that. Am I trying to establish my ethos again? Yes, I will admit that. So, let's go on. But was I just using my personal credibility, or was I using something else? Was I maybe using a little bit of pathos? Yes, I was. I was trying to talk about my comfort level, which relates to emotions. Pathos is probably the most often used form of rhetoric. It is also the most potent and Aristotle's least favorite. Pathos taps into our emotions and our most basic human drives: food, shelter, sex, and social acceptance, to name a few. Most advertising relies on pathos. Buy our product and you too can be cool, successful, or attractive. It's also heavily used in social and political protests. And we should point out at this point, and by we I mean me, sorry about the royal we there, is that it's hard to find any kind of argument relying just on one of these 4. Usually there's some combination of these 4 elements of rhetoric that are used to make any kind of argument. We just have to think about the ratios, and we have to think about how they're being used and why they're being used. So let's talk about logos, which Aristotle regarded as the highest form of rhetoric because it relies on logic and verifiably true information. Scientific studies, thoroughly and carefully constructed public polls, experiments, documentaries where people try to get a lot of different perspectives, where they mix, data with interviews with people having different viewpoints, where they try to create some kind of balance. Real objectivity may be extremely difficult to achieve, but to at least create a situation where you're learning from a lot of different angles about what's happening. So there's logic that's being used there. They're trying to incorporate all the relevant information that can be verified. That's logos. It is the most demanding form of persuasion for the audience because the audience has to make sure it's paying attention and is really thinking about all the time, does this check out? Is this logical? Are the facts verifiable from other sources? And then it's also challenging for the speaker or writer because the speaker or writer has to make sure That's logical, that the facts check out from multiple sources. It is the kind of argument that takes the longest to construct and the longest to analyze. The advantage, however, is that it is the strongest type of persuasion because it's the hardest to attack. Because if someone's done a really good job at putting together an argument and taking all these steps and carefully, measuring, then it will hold up under scrutiny. And then finally we have kairos, which is really special and isn't always used because it's only used under certain circumstances. Because sometimes an issue will get the public's attention because something has happened. Unfortunately, in America, whenever we have a mass shooting, the idea of what do we do about gun control? What do we do about people who feel the need to kill people unlike them? Is it a mental health issue? Is it a hate issue? Is it easy access to firearms issue? So that creates what we call a kairotic moment. It's an opportunity to talk about something that might not be in people's, thoughts every single day, but it's something that when an event unfolds, that it grabs the public's attention. It's about speaking or taking action at the right time and sometimes even at the right place. So think about the Occupy Wall Street movement. President George W. Bush's speech after 9/11 at Ground Zero. The Black Lives Matter protests after George Floyd was killed by police. Those are all examples of kairos. So what do you do when you find yourself on the receiving end of someone or some group trying to persuade you? So you want to ask yourself some basic questions. And don't worry if you don't feel like you've got all the criteria in your head about how to analyze this. The first step is to start asking questions. And we're going to talk in future videos about how to break these down even a little bit more. But let's just start off with just doing at least some light questioning. So first of all, you want to think about who's trying to persuade me. Who is this person? What is his or her angle? What is this person or group trying to persuade me to do or not do? What will happen to me, my family, my community, or even my country if I act or don't act in the way this person or group desires? You want to think through what the possible outcomes are. How will the persuading person or group benefit if I take or not take that action? What's their angle? Why do they want you to do something or not to do something? What's in it for them? Is this person or group trustworthy? How do I know? Is this person or group speaking for some other person or group who isn't facing the public? If so, why? So think about Dorothy and her friends. What were they told? Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Who was the man behind the curtain? The Great Oz, which basically turned out to be an old guy with great special effects. That happens in real life, too. You'll have somebody who's the public face of some group or some other individual who's out there trying to persuade people, but why is it that there's somebody lurking in the shadows? Why isn't that person going public? And that's something to ask yourself. Does the argument make sense? Is it logical? Or does it require a lot of, well, if this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens, then this will be the result. If it's really tortured logic, there's a chance that there is a problem. So, again, we're going to talk about more what that looks like in future episodes, but do that gut check with yourself. Are the facts verifiable from a variety of sources with different points of view? Does it check out no matter what kind of media source you look at on the political spectrum. You know, the facts have to be consistent no matter what. The facts. Now, keep in mind, sometimes people selectively tell the truth. They'll tell you part of the truth without telling you the whole truth. And admittedly, sometimes it's hard to determine what the whole truth is because not all the facts are known at different points in time regarding something. But do people share all the facts that are known? And are they presented fairly and accurately, or are they distorting them, exaggerating them, underplaying them? You want to think about how the facts are laid out and if other sources treat those facts the same way. And if there's some discrepancy, you want to ask yourself why that might be. And then, is the person or group pressuring me to act quickly? If so, why? We've all been there. We've all been on the receiving end of some salesperson who's getting towards the end of the month and wants to make his or her quota, and we're getting that high-pressured sales pitch to act today, that this offer is a limited time thing, and if you don't act today, you're going to miss out. So they're playing on your fear of missing out to get you to act quickly so they can make their quota. But sometimes people do that in terms of trying to get you to take action. It's not just always about spending money. Sometimes they want you to vote a certain way, or not vote at all, or not vote a certain way, or there's a lot of possibilities here about how people want you to act or not act. But the thing is, this is your choice. You get to make the decision. And if people respect you as a person, they should respect your desire to want to think things over, to pause, take a beat, and figure out whether or not you want to go with that person or that group or not. You are the ultimate, person to determine what the best course is for you. So if somebody's trying to pressure you, it's because they've got a deadline. They've got an agenda. But it's your choice. Own your choice. If you liked what you heard today, please like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching. And hope to see you on the channel again soon. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and one another. Bye-bye.